Level 1. You are a sheltered and terrified kid. Even Disney villains give you nightmares. You were probably raised in a strict conservative household. Super religious, no bad influences. Even Scar from The Lion King and Voldemort scared you. Your parents literally sat with you, even if you watched a PG-13 movie. Every show, every song, every app had to be filtered and approved. The world beyond your home felt forbidden, terrifying, and sinful. Even the smallest act of rebellion felt like a serious transgression. Level 2. You only watched MA-15 and R-rated films during sleepovers, usually sneaking in your horror films. They scared the absolute shit out of you, to the point you always thought there was something under your bed and something lurking behind your window. But for some reason, you loved the adrenaline. Honestly, it might be that you were defying your parents. It was more than just a movie. It was freedom. Level 3. You really get into horror films and start watching your way through all the classics. It, Friday the 13th, The Conjuring, and Annabelle. At this point, horror is the only genre you watch. You don't bother with dramas or comedies. Horror becomes your weird little comfort zone. But still, you can't handle them alone yet. You need someone to watch it with because you're still scared shitless. A partner, a friend, a family member, whatever. You're also absolutely scared of going to the toilet alone mid-movie. Level 4. At this point, you finally become a bit braver. You can finally watch horror films alone. Now, your typical blockbuster doesn't scare you anymore. You need something more. You're bored with the cheap jump scares and you need something more atmospheric, more real. At this point, you go more indie and you start watching all the Japanese and Korean classics. Pulse, Cure, Noroi, The Wailing, and even the goated Twin Peaks. You start analyzing these films from an objective point of view. Some films still scare you, but they are few and far between. You have watched so many horror films at this point that you have just accepted the phantom figures you see in your periphery. But still, there's a weird fear that lurks within you. You can't be fully alone at night still. Level 5. At this point, nothing scares you. You are almost too stone-hearted. You seek the next rush of adrenaline in internet videos. You start becoming more and more depraved. You go into the darker corners of the internet, the dark web, live leak, etc. It starts as curiosity, but quickly turns into a rabbit hole. You stumble across films like The Most Disturbed Person on Planet Earth and FUBAR, and just other underground films as well. At this point, you're just watching things that have gore for gore's sake. It's almost cheap. You're not even sure why you're watching horror anymore. It's not adrenaline, not fear, just a morbid pull, maybe a fascination with the rawness of it, the extremity. It's disturbing, but you keep going, like testing the limits of what your mind can handle. Level 6. At this point, you move beyond visual media and start getting into books and manga. These leave a more permanent mark. They implant the horror in your mind. Your imagination can create images that are more horrific than any real piece of visual media. You read Mai Chan's Daily Life, George Bataille, and Marquise de Sade. It's not about gore anymore. It's psychological, existential, grotesque. At this point, ordinary life starts to feel too bland, too sanitized. Your mind drifts constantly to the darker aspects of existence. Death, pain, perversion, decay. You start to see horror not just as entertainment, but as a lens through which to understand reality. It's unsettling, but strangely comforting. Darkness feels more honest than light. At this point, you also start having lucid dreams that feel realer than real life. Alien abductions, the supernatural, you name it. Level 7. You finally come to understand that the real horror exists in real life. Firstly, you're alone in a vast, indifferent universe. What can be more horrifying than that? But that's not all. There are people in this world currently committing unspeakable crimes. I mean, there has been a literal 8-year-old serial killer at one point. But even that's not all. There are entire populations living under dictatorships, war zones, famines, and disease, without food, water, or hope. Now you move your attention to nature, and you are horrified by what you see. The animal kingdom runs on irrational violence. You find out the truth about dolphins, and it's not cute. Lastly, you start confronting the horror within yourself, your conscience, your traumas, your fears, and your flaws. Perhaps all this was just a distraction from your soul. Perhaps immersing into life is the darkest horror of them all.